All right. Hi, everyone. Let's go ahead and get ourselves started. I love the engagement here. Hi, everyone. My name is Mamuna Oladipo, based out of New York. I'm happy to be here today. Um, you know, Actually, before we get started, I'd love to since I can't see everyone's faces, I'd love to get a sense of who we have in the room. Maybe y'all can use the chat. Um, can everyone sort of say where they are in their product journey? Are you trying to get into product? Are you currently in product? You've been around for a couple of years. Where are we? Nice. Okay. So we have people breaking into product, folks who have project experience, currently in product, program manager looking to get into product. Awesome. So we have a good assortment of folks. I love it. So this is great. I appreciate any sort of questions as you all hear me chatting. I will try to incorporate them, or if needed, I can save it to the end. I'll definitely make space towards the end for any questions that you may have. So I also will ask you later on what your intention or hope is to get out of the career fair, just as you're sort of orienting and listening to folks throughout the day. So that being said, I'm here to speak to you today about 10 things that you should consider when considering a career in product. By no means is this list exhaustive, but it's a quick way for us to kickstart the conversation for us to have afterwards. So product management is tricky to define. I bet if we were to poll the room, we would see different definitions of what product management is and could be in our minds from person to person. Excuse me. So as such, navigating a product management career can be equally ambiguous and sometimes frustrating. I know when I first got into product, I really didn't understand what it was. I struggled to define it with clarity and in a way that my friends could actually know, what I got up and did every day at the office. I used to just say, I make things that come out of people's heads and go into computers, and then you can interact with it. And it was very crude. So on top of that complexity, the way that we define product roles from one organization to another is likely also very different depending on the industry, the size you're trying to work within. So with that being said, there is no single absolute way to say by doing X, you will get Y. So as I talk today, my findings here are more like perspective and things that you could keep top of mind as you start to explore a role in product management, or if you're already in product management, feel comfort that maybe the way that you're feeling is familiar to others in product. So generally, when you're looking to get into product management for the first time, you'll find it hard maybe to break in, because really the only way to learn product, or some of the ways to learn product, is just to be in product. And a lot of times you'll find companies aren't as willing to take risk initially, unless they have maybe an APM program or an internship program. So an approach you can often take here is to look for natural transition points that make sense with your background. So maybe it's finding opportunities on engineering or product marketing or QA or data or design, whatever it may be, and looking for ways to connect your skills with products so that you can learn in parallel. Or something I encourage a lot of people to do is, find maybe an hour a week if you have that, and volunteer some of your time to pair with product managers. In that world, you get to just kind of see what the day-to-day looks like, what you could potentially be doing, ask people who are currently on the job for advice, and also build trust with people who are already doing the job. Another thing that we think about when we think about product management is science. So a lot of times we say that product management is a science. You have your frameworks, you're managing backlogs, you're understanding data and tracking metrics and all that fun stuff. You'll likely find more books than you know what to do with in this space. And that's likely because science is easier to measure in a sense. You can write about it, you can easily understand it. But on the other side is your art. And this is really how you get things done. So You think about how you communicate, how you show empathy, how you tell a compelling story and inspire others, how you connect with your customers and their problems, and how you lead individuals without authority, which is big in product management. So normally when a PM is, failing, or they're not feeling like they're hitting the mark, it's because of that art portion. Oftentimes when I'm working with PMs, I'll put an emphasis in this area because we have a tendency to tuck it away until problems fester. And at that point, it's bigger than we needed it to be. So, again, as a PM, while you don't have to know everything, it would be good to understand how your pieces connect with other parts of the system. I like to always think of this as holistic product thinking. So the fastest way to get there is to be curious, ask a lot of questions, make friends with other PMs, build a community around you of people who you feel comfortable asking questions to. Alongside this thought, it's important that you know when to say, I don't know. I think that a lot of times people can see it or hear it in a room when you don't know something, so you might as well just go ahead and say it. And that gives the person who you're speaking with or the group you're speaking with some opportunity to define it to you quickly, so you can take some notes, take those, and do some learnings on your side later. This is something that I personally actively do. I find myself going into new spaces all the time, and there's no way that I'm going to know everything. So I always encourage people to be comfortable saying that they don't know. It helps to also build trust across your teams or whoever it is that you're working with, because they'll know that when something is wrong or whatever it may be, you're openly able to communicate. I think a lot of times in these spaces, my team will hear me ask maybe the same question in 3 ways because I'm looking to see if I get the same answer or if I'm getting different answers and maybe some tidbits I didn't know to ask. So, I call this casting my smart net and to see what comes back to me. I think many people can relate to this. Sometimes when people are talking and they're describing to you a problem, the first thing you go to is, okay, how can I solve this for them? What can I do for them here? And technically, that is product management. You're there because you want to help solve your customer problems. But on the flip side of this, if you jump too quickly to solutions, you may actually miss the full depth of the problem. And so I always like to encourage people to fall in love with the problem because that's where you really find that innovation, when you can truly speak to the pain that is felt by the customer. So you really want to make sure that you connect with the needs of the customer by really connecting with that problem and feeling in your heart. Because a lot of times also you are advocating for on behalf of the customer who's not in the room, which takes me very nicely to my next point, which is, as you've probably heard or experienced, as a PM, you are wearing multiple hats. So you need to advocate for engineering. You need to be able to speak to what the executive needs. You need to be able to talk to marketing. You have to be able to speak to the customer needs, you name it. So you'll likely also play devil's advocate in your head, in rooms, in different settings with a number of people. And that's because you have the conviction, because you have connected with the problem in such a meaningful way. And a lot of times in this case, you don't want to take the first idea that someone pops up with, because you want to try to poke holes and see it from different views. And so to really do this right, you have to understand the problem, and then you have to be able to represent the views of each individual who's looking at that problem. Sometimes you'll notice that when you're in the interview process, you're meeting with a number of stakeholders or peers, and their hope in this is that they can see how you approach problems from different angles. So like they'll have maybe the same sets of questions, but asked in different ways to see how you come about with an answer or a direction in your thinking. I don't believe that you have to be a product manager to have strong product instincts. I think that people's ability just know what makes a good product. They just feel it. And so while they may not be perfectly right all the time, their instincts normally will point them in the right direction. So product management involves just a number of small decisions. Of course, you have your big decisions. You're thinking about strategy and direction, et cetera. But really, those small decisions are where you start to really differentiate that product from good to great. And this is where PMs that are really digging in can take the product in any direction. And so having a sense of, your conviction, what you believe is important, and understanding where to push those boundaries or push the thinking of the people in the room is also important. Follow those instincts that you have. And then, when you're following your instincts and when you're thinking about direction, you want to make sure that you are not so zoomed into solutioning that you forget about the bigger picture, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for. So when you start to make those like small decisions without considering how it affects the whole system, it can start to potentially have effects that you did not consider or plan for. So it's important that you in this role zoom out and understand, why you're doing something, who it's going to affect. And if it doesn't align towards your goals, then you need to align or realign the steps that you're taking. You always want to make sure that you're calibrating towards the direction. You're making sure your team understands the decision making, you're connecting to them why, you're keeping them engaged. And so you want to keep track of your progress against the wider goal and not just in that sort of small segment of today or this week. And then, discomfort. I mean, you are inevitably going to put into a situation where you're uncomfortable and you're trying to learn quickly or on the fly and you have to just figure it out. I would say embrace it. Know that it's going to happen and it happens to everyone. I find that sometimes when I am in those moments, I just call it out like, oh, wow, this is awkward or this is weird. And it's just like more so just to bring the temperature down and acknowledge that we're all human beings. The person is probably going to be able to relate to the time that they felt the same way. And that helps to maybe just ease it a little bit. I think sometimes you're going to make good decisions and sometimes you're not going to make the best decisions. It's a space for you to develop your craft in direction making and how you learn, how you think on your feet. I always invite people into those situations to think with me, talk with me, and make it more of a, this is just a me show and more of a, hey, let's have a conversation and work our way through this thing together. And then, for those of you who have maybe spent a little bit more time, I see a couple of you have been in a product or project or program, you'll have just professional experience in some meaningful way. Product management is a craft. In this craft, we're building our judgment skills, we're understanding frameworks over time, and all these reflexes we develop through doing. So as you start to work on your teams, you work with maybe folks who are just trying to break through or people who are in your organization that are looking to pair, try to find opportunities to share. And I'm not saying that you have to officially become a coach, but the thing is that even just sharing your experience is a form of coaching because you are allowing them to kind of learn from your experience. They can ask follow-up questions, little things like, maybe how did you get your first job in products? Tell me about a time you made a mistake. That will inspire people around you to connect to some part of your story that you maybe wouldn't have intended. And then, I truly believe in this one because I think it's helped me throughout my career, which is a lot of times you'll find the opportunities just don't fall in your lap. So, very early in my career, I learned that you kind of have to take a little bit of risk. It's very uncomfortable. And it's very much a time that you stretch and grow into who you're going to be, your communication style, your professional identity, whatever it may be. You have to ask for those projects and experiences that you want when you see them. You have to look at your career as like a story and ask yourself, what is my next chapter and what am I missing to get there? And then you have to work to close those gaps between where you are currently and where you want to go in your future. I always say that you can share your goals and aspirations with others, but at the end of the day, you have to take those steps. So it's going to have to be your voice. Of course, you have people advocating for you, but you're going to have to take that step. And so it helps when you understand where you're trying to go. So play an active role in your path. Bring people in if you should have a strong relationship with your manager, but communicate what it is that you want to be able to accomplish. Have them help you find opportunities that help you get to where you want to be. I always say people feel People stay at jobs because they feel engaged. They feel like they're learning, not just delivering, but they're learning and growing in their career as an individual. And part of that is telling people what you need to learn and grow as an individual at your company. And so write your story, understand where you want to go, and then share it openly. And with that, I'm going to pause and open up for any questions that people may have. And if you want to, I know I just learned that you can do this, but if you want to pop up and ask your own question, I think you're able to do that. But otherwise, you can just drop it in the chat. What types of experiences are people having? I see a couple of folks who maybe are project managers that are potentially looking to transition into product. Let's see. Since I started learning about product management, I have been hearing two opposing schools of thought. Some people have told me that it's best to specialize in particular, i.e., to reach your fullest potential as a PM. Others have told me that it doesn't matter so much what the product is because a great PM should be. Okay. So I personally feel that it's important to be a generalist. That's because that's what I am. I consider myself to be a generalist. And the reason I consider this is because you are going to, from my experience, you are going to have to, or you should experience product across multiple industries or multiple like different sizes of companies. And so being able to take a transferable skill across that is going to be important. I also think that the speed at which technology is changing and growing, it's hard to keep up with everything. And so by being a generalist, you sort of have those skills that are more horizontal in nature that allow you to keep up without having to spread yourself too thin. Does that make sense? All right, next question. Does Shopify focus on hiring people with PM experience and mentioned in the job description? PM roles, ops, if yes, then what is Shopify looking in? So for Shopify, I know that there's an APM program as well as I want to say, a more like an associate role, like more junior PM roles. Again, I think it comes down to, and I should caveat this by saying that I joined recently, so I am still looking to understand the different requirements. But I would say generally, for the roles, you want to be able to communicate how what you've done can be used for the company. So a lot of times when you look at resumes, a lot of people list, I did this thing, I did that thing, and it seems like a task list. And what you want to try to do is consider forming your resume in a way that speaks to the value of the organization. So if you were to hire me, what value would I bring to your organization? So here are my accomplishments. Here's how they were measured by the company, or here's the impact I had in that company. Does that make sense for your resume and cover letter and just how to approach that? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. If so, Tiffany, what is the most impactful lesson you have learned during your journey to a VP of product? Yes, I've learned a lot of lessons. The biggest one I would say is, there's so many in this, that people are important to delivering the thing. And I say that because a lot of times when you're in product, regardless of the level, you think that you can just focus on delivering execution, and that will keep everyone engaged and full in their jobs. They'll get the same fulfillment in their role as maybe you are, but you have to understand that everyone is going through something different. Everyone is in a different part or situation in their lives. And so you have to really ensure that you are connecting with your team as a PM, even though you're not maybe directly leading individuals, but you have to encourage your team to want to get excited about the thing you're working on. So it is important to be able to not only communicate effectively and engage your team, but also just ensure that you know them as a human being. And then as you move up to VP and other roles, you start to now have to lead through others. And so it's important when you're leading through others that now the people who are speaking in the rooms that you're not in understand your thinking. They've had a chance to maybe disagree with your thinking, but they've committed to the direction you're going in. And creating that space for that glue or cohesion is just important to having a successful team. And when you have a successful team, they are in more probably chances to be, they have more chances to be a high performing team. And so, I found that over the last year when I was transitioning from when I was taking over engineering and my team just was large, I couldn't talk to everyone. I couldn't connect with everyone the same. And so I had to figure out now how to lean more heavily on my direct reports. And so that difference as you move up in your career was just something that that stuck in my mind. It often seems APM positions are reserved for new grads as someone with 10 years of professional experience engineering product with transferable skills looking for an entry-level PM role similar to an APM. Do you have insights on this that you could share? I can't speak to Shopify specifically. I know that a lot of times it's just challenging to with transferable skills and tangible experience to now move into an APM role. It's a bit harder to say because I don't know your experience, but if you do have those transferable skill sets, I would encourage you to think about how you can maybe tell a story that paints you as a PM, even though maybe you weren't a PM, maybe you worked alongside PMs, maybe you were able to deliver something. I don't know if you're a project manager, like I'm not sure what role you were in, but there might be ways for you to craft your story in a meaningful way that allows you to tell the story without you having the PM like a title per se. Give me one sec. What are some of the respective product management certificate that help break into PM field? Can a shift happen later in a career in tech industry company? Product school has a great certificate program, and I have taught a number of their courses and have come across a number of individuals who are either looking to transition into product or were just starting on product or they had careers in product and looking to move to that next level. A shift can always happen. I never dare limit anyone. I think everyone is capable of achieving what it is that they want to do if they are really compelled and invested in that direction. I think a lot of times the world can be a little bit overwhelming because you're just like, I just want that thing, but I don't know how to get there. So what I encourage you to do is, maybe create a product roadmap for your career and say, okay, in X amount of time, I want to be able to get X type of job. And working backwards from that, what are the skills that you need to have in place? What are the bits of knowledge you need to know? Can you identify certain types of companies that you feel maybe your oil and gas experience would translate nicely into, and figure out ways to create some milestones that give you a bit of encouragement in the steps that you're taking throughout your journey. Okay. Do you find the interview about product sense effective in evaluating a PM candidate switching seats? How do you demonstrate that you're a good PM in a short interview other than showing the former PM titles and famous employers on that resume? I would ask a follow-up question there, which is when you're saying how do you demonstrate, I'm assuming you're having the conversation with an individual. And in this case, I would still go to what I had said about your resume, which is that you really want to focus on the value and impact of yourself in a company. I would say if it's a short interview, it's not the time to go through like a 20-minute story, but it's like the greatest hits or the highlights reel. So you're in there saying, maybe if you had 5 minutes if you had to name three things, what are the most impactful things that you could highlight in your career? Speak to the measurements, the audience, the company, whatever it is. And I think even in that sense, you're getting a sense of how a person thinks. So they're speaking not to the task list, but to the impact. And that means that they're able to now think about how they're going to deliver impact to your company, which is always useful. What is the key posture for success in product management? I'm not sure I understand. I mean, there are many things that can make you successful in product management. As I was saying before, it depends on the company. This, if you're working for a small startup, you're probably spread across multiple areas, across supporting multiple people. And so maybe in that case, it's like your strong project management skills or your ability to execute and just get stuff done as soon as possible. You put out fires, et cetera. Maybe when you go to a larger company, it's now tapping more into how you communicate, how you tell a story, how you get others to get excited about what's being worked on, how you can lead. So it really depends on where your individual skills are. Some companies, like if you're applying for a growth role, how do you leverage data to tell that story? So it really just comes down to where your areas of interest are and what you think you could truly give. I think it's important to be honest about who you are and where your strengths are. And then lean into those spaces. Not to say that you ignore the things that you need to work on, because we all need to work on something. But when you're looking to enter into a role, make sure you try to leverage those areas of expertise that you do have. As an online marketplace who gets competition from new players every day and big companies alike, how can product keep calm? Deal with competition, deal with copycat features. How do you retain your customers on such a competitive market? That's a very deep question, and there's a lot in there. I would just at a high level say that a lot of it comes down to your team and how you hire. Having a diverse team is important because you're bringing people with diverse sets of backgrounds, experiences, and ways of thinking, as well as just seeing what's in the room. So that's a great start to think about how do you now deal with the competition, because your goal isn't to tit for tat people in the market. You want to make sure that what you're delivering is of value. You want to get stuck on just meeting where your competitors are. And so it's a balance, and that's part of the joy of product management. There's no real way to say that if you do this every time it's going to work. It really depends on the type of company you're in and how you all are, how do you keep your finger on the pulse of the market? How involved is your team in your product team in tracking progress against competitive forces? And is it even important? Are you all long-term planning to stay in that space? Are you looking to potentially move into new spaces if that one's overcrowded? You have to think about those things altogether. How do you guys in Africa break into the product management use as well rounded product management training? Yeah, I mean, it's challenging, right? And I think I get a lot of folks reaching out to me throughout Africa who are looking to, break into product management. I think that that's a space that we need to work through. I don't have a good answer for you there, but it has been something that's top of mind for me. Just, I am Nigerian, and I want to make sure that, there's equal opportunity for everyone as they look to enter the product, because there's more roles than we know what to do with. I applaud Shopify because when I came on board, I was surprised at how many people that they've employed that have come from Nigeria or other countries. And so I think it's important to just find maybe employers that align with your areas of interest and just apply. But I think what you're doing right now is that you are getting that learning, and you're trying to get your foundation in product management, which is always important. How important is having an MBA to product? I mean, I have one. hot take, I don't know if I would do it again personally. I think that it's fine, but I don't think that it is critical for you to have to be a successful product manager. I don't even know if you'd have, I mean, again, I think that some of the skills in products are just natural to who you are. You know, when you see something good, you know it's good. And so I do think that you're able to be successful without the MBA. That's my personal opinion. I know we are a bit going to be over time. I will take one more question when transitioning into an APM role. How important is having a website portfolio to share? So I would say really quickly, it is useful if you're transitioning new into a APM or PM role. If you've done some work on the side to kind of showcase your thinking and how you approach problems without having pure product experience, it's a good way just to showcase your skills. So you could do a lot of case studies, whatever it may be, just to kind of show that you do have that skill set in your belt. I do see a question about computer science for PM role. It really depends on how technical of the organization you are trying to work within. It can be great for some companies because they want people who can work very closely with engineering and be able to speak the language. In some companies, it's not as important. So it depends on the type of company that you're looking to apply to. I appreciate all of you. I thank you for your time. I'm going to pop into the hiring booth on the Shopify side. So if you all want to say hello, feel free to pop in. But I appreciate your time and I look forward to chatting with you. Thank you all. Take care.